Success is quiet when it comes from a place of pain. It doesn't shout or sparkle. It simply grows, like roots beneath the surface, steady and strong. That's what my life had become. No longer a loud performance of happiness, but a quiet reality of peace. A year had passed since Ethan officially adopted Liam. Our days were filled with routine and laughter. Mornings with breakfast together, evenings with story time and cuddles. Weekends were reserved for family walks, homemade pancakes, and spontaneous road trips. It was everything I had once dreamed of, but never believed I deserved. And yet, just as I had found my rhythm, the world decided to test me again. It began with an invitation. A prominent women's empowerment summit was being held in New York. My name had been chosen to headline the main keynote. It was an international event. Leaders, celebrities, survivors, CEOs. They wanted me to speak on rebuilding, life after betrayal, and using trauma as a foundation for impact. I accepted without hesitation. This was the stage where I would speak not just for myself, but for every woman who had ever been broken and expected to stay quiet. The weeks leading up to the summit were hectic. Between preparing the speech, handling business meetings, and making sure Liam had everything he needed, I barely had time to breathe. Ethan offered to come with me, but I insisted he stay with Liam. It would only be 3 days. I wanted Liam to stick to his routine. He was thriving in school, already reading ahead of his age. I didn't want to disrupt that. The night before I left, Ethan held me tightly in bed. "You're going to change lives out there." I looked up at him. "I already have, starting with mine." He smiled. "Come back home to us soon." Always. When I arrived in New York, the energy of the city wrapped around me like fire. Tall buildings, fast cars, high heels, and purpose in every corner. But unlike the last time I had walked in this city, years ago as Ryan's wife, I wasn't lost. I was leading. I met with other speakers, some who had survived things I couldn't imagine: abuse, war, poverty. And yet there we were, sitting at the same table, laughing, encouraging, rising. There's a power in shared survival. It creates sisterhoods that no bloodline ever could. The day of my keynote arrived. I stood backstage, my speech in hand, my palms sweating slightly. The auditorium was full, lights dimmed, cameras rolled. My name echoed through the room. Applause filled the air. I stepped onto the stage and took a breath. Then I spoke. I told them about Jessica, the young woman who fell in love with the wrong man, the woman who gave birth alone, who was left for a secretary and abandoned without warning. I told them about the nights I couldn't sleep, the mornings I forced a smile, the weight of raising a child while my heart was still bleeding. Then I told them about my rise, the business I built, the strength I found, the man who showed me what love truly meant, and the son who made every broken piece worth putting back together. I ended with these words: "You are not what broke you. You are what you built after." A standing ovation erupted. I felt it in my chest, like thunder rolling under my skin. That applause wasn't just for me. It was for every woman in that room who had made it through something. After the talk, I was swarmed by attendees. Hugs, questions, tears. One woman, older, with silver hair and trembling hands, told me she left her abusive husband after watching my story online. Another showed me a photo of her child, her reason for staying alive. My pain had become their proof. That healing was possible. That life after betrayal could still be beautiful. That night, in my hotel room, I video called Ethan and Liam. Liam held up a drawing, a stick figure of me on a stage with a big red heart. "Did you help the ladies, Mommy?" I smiled, swallowing tears. "Yes, baby. I helped them, and they helped me too." The next day, as I was packing, I received an unexpected call. My assistant's voice was nervous. "Jessica, there's something strange. Someone left a package at the office. No return address, just a name written on the box." Ryan. My heart skipped. Ryan was dead. Gone. Buried. How could this be? I asked her to open it carefully. She described the contents. An old leather notebook, sealed in plastic, and a flash drive taped to the inside. Send it to me. Overnight. I need to see it for myself. It arrived the morning I got back. Liam was at school. Ethan was in a meeting. I sat alone in my home office, the package in front of me like a ticking memory. I opened it. The notebook was worn, the cover faded. Inside were pages of messy handwriting, dated entries. From Ryan. Journals. I hesitated, then began reading. Some were written during our marriage, others after. Some while he was still with Mandy, others from the shelter. All of them were raw. Confessions, delusions, regrets. I never loved her the way she deserved. I wanted her wealth, yes, but I didn't expect her kindness to destroy me. I saw her give birth in the photos I missed. It haunted me. She forgave me. She really forgave me, and I didn't deserve it. The flash drive contained audio recordings. Ryan speaking into his phone, apologies, reflections, hopes that one day, Liam would know he wasn't born unloved, just fathered by a broken man. I listened to 2, then I stopped. It wasn't because I hated Ryan. It wasn't even because it hurt. It was because I had finally understood. He was just a man, a deeply flawed man, one who fell into his own choices. And he didn't rise. He sank. But I had risen. I had survived. I placed the notebook back in the box and locked it away. One day, when Liam was older, maybe he would read it, not to change his mind, but to understand that his father hadn't been a villain, just a lesson. Weeks passed. The memory of the package faded. Life returned to normal. Ethan and I planned a family vacation. Liam turned 5 and asked for a dinosaur-themed birthday party. We built pillow forts. We baked cupcakes. We danced barefoot in the living room. I was living a life I didn't need to explain. A few days later, while speaking at a private event for young mothers, I saw a woman in the back row who looked familiar. Her eyes met mine. She nodded slightly. After the event, she approached me. It was Mandy. Older, different. No heels, no tight dress. She wore a long coat, hair tied back, face bare. I came to say thank you. I raised an eyebrow. Thank you for not becoming like me, for not letting anger consume you, for choosing to rise. I studied her face. There was no smugness left, no arrogance, just humility, quiet and genuine. I nodded. We all make choices, Mandy. You made yours. I made mine. She smiled. And yours were better. She turned and walked away. I never saw her again. Back home, I sat with Ethan in the garden, our hands entwined as the sun dipped behind the trees. Do you ever think about the past? I asked him. Sometimes, he said, but only to remember how far we've come. I kissed his hand. Me too. And as Liam ran toward us with flowers in his hands, his laughter echoing into the fading light, I realized something. Revenge was never about destruction. It was about redemption. It was about building something so beautiful. The ruins no longer mattered. The seasons shifted again. Summer melted into autumn, and golden leaves danced across the sidewalks, like little reminders that even the most vibrant things must eventually fall and be reborn. Our home was filled with warmth. The kind of warmth that didn't come from expensive furniture or glowing fireplaces, but from laughter echoing down the hallway, sleepy hugs in the morning, and dinner conversations about dinosaurs and rocket ships. Liam was growing fast. He had Ethan's calm nature and my fierce determination. He asked deep questions for his age, about the stars, about dreams, about why people sometimes leave and never come back. I always answered honestly, but gently, because truth doesn't need to be sharp to be powerful. Ethan and I had fallen into an effortless rhythm. Our love no longer burned like wildfire. It glowed, constant, steady, real. We didn't chase butterflies anymore. We built gardens where they came to rest. One Sunday afternoon, we went hiking at a trail 2 hours out of town. The air was crisp. Liam rode on Ethan's shoulders most of the way, giggling as he pointed out squirrels and strange-shaped rocks. When we reached the top of the hill, the view stretched out endlessly. Golden fields, distant lakes, rows of trees painting the landscape with amber and red. As we sat on a bench to rest, Ethan turned toward me, his eyes thoughtful. "I've been thinking about something for a while." I smiled. "That sounds serious." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart paused. "Jessica, I know we've been building a life together for years now. Raising Liam, healing, loving. But there's one thing we haven't done yet." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, not flashy like Ryan's had been, but meaningful, timeless. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at him. This man, who had stepped into the ruins of my life and built a home with me brick by brick. "Yes, yes, Ethan. 1,000 times, yes." Liam clapped his hands and shouted, "Yay! Mommy's gonna marry Daddy again." We laughed, we cried, we held each other until the sun began to set behind the trees. It was nothing like the first proposal I had once received. No champagne, no grand show, just love, pure and unshakable. When we got back home, we didn't rush into wedding planning. We didn't need to prove anything. We were already a family. The ceremony would just be a celebration of what already existed. We chose a small venue by the lake for the following spring. Invitations went out to close friends and family. I didn't bother with a big gown or designer shoes. I chose comfort, authenticity, beauty without pretense. Liam was to be our ring bearer. He practiced walking down the hallway every night with a toy box in hand, announcing, "Here comes the ring." The months passed in quiet joy. One evening, as I was going through old files in the attic, I came across a photo album I hadn't seen in years. It was from my early days with Ryan, our wedding, our vacations, our fake smiles. I stared at one photo. Me in a white dress, Ryan holding my waist, both of us pretending to be something we weren't. I didn't feel pain anymore, just distance. That woman in the photo wasn't me anymore. She was a version of myself that had to walk through fire to find her voice. I closed the album and placed it in a box labeled Past, not to erase, but to store, to keep as evidence of who I had become. The day of our wedding arrived. The sun was kind that morning, not too harsh, not too shy, just enough to kiss the grass and warm our faces. I wore a simple dress that flowed like water. My hair was braided loosely, small flowers tucked into the strands. Liam wore a tiny suit and kept asking when he could eat cake. The ceremony was held by the lake, surrounded by trees and friends who had walked through the darkest parts of life with me. My parents cried. My sister held my hand before I walked down the aisle. And then I saw him, Ethan, waiting under an arch of white roses, smiling like I was the sunrise. I walked slowly, every step echoing 1,000 memories. The hospital bed, the loneliness, the betrayal, the long nights, the letters, the healing, all of it led to this moment. When I reached him, he took my hand gently. "You're here," I whispered. "Always." We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. Ethan promised to never let the shadows of my past dim the light we had built. I promised to love him, not just for who he was, but for how he had loved my son, wholly, unconditionally. Liam handed us the rings with pride, whispering, "Don't drop them." We didn't. We kissed as husband and wife. And just like that, I had rewritten the story I thought was finished. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and stories. Ethan's toast made everyone cry. Mine made everyone laugh. And then, after the sun dipped below the lake, we sat quietly at our table, watching Liam play tag with the other children under fairy lights. "Do you think he'll remember this?" I asked. Maybe not all the details, Ethan said, but he'll remember how it felt. Safe, loved, whole. Later that night, when we arrived at our hotel suite, there was a letter on the bed. I opened it slowly. It was from my father. My dearest Jessica, I wasn't always the best at expressing myself, but today, watching you walk down that aisle, I realized something. You didn't just survive, my girl. You rose. You transformed pain into strength, betrayal into beauty. And watching the way Ethan looks at you, I know now, this is what love was always meant to be. You've made me proud in ways I can't explain. And you've given Liam the gift of a mother who never gave up. Hold on to that. Love always. Dad. I cried quietly in Ethan's arms that night, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of healing. It's heavy, but it's beautiful. The next morning, Ethan surprised me with a short honeymoon trip to Santorini. We left Liam with my sister, his favorite aunt, and spent 4 days exploring blue-domed villages, walking barefoot on warm sand, and drinking wine under the stars. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like a woman, not just a survivor. I laughed without checking who was watching. I loved without holding back. I looked in the mirror and saw beauty, not brokenness. On our final night there, Ethan said something that stayed with me. You didn't need me to become whole, but I'm so lucky you let me walk beside you while you did. I kissed him under the moonlight, the Aegean Sea sparkling behind us, and I realized this was it, the life I thought I lost, the love I thought I didn't deserve, the peace I believed was out of reach. It was here, it was real, and I had built it from nothing. Spring turned to summer again, the kind of summer where the air smelled like garden blooms and sunscreen, and the sound of sprinklers became the soundtrack to our afternoons. Liam was finishing kindergarten, proudly carrying home crayon drawings and crooked paper crafts. Ethan and I, now a married couple in name as much as in spirit, had settled into a deeper kind of happiness. Quiet, grounded, real. One afternoon, as I was going through donation boxes in the garage, I found something unexpected. An old briefcase. It was leather-bound, scratched on the corners. One I hadn't seen since the days with Ryan. Curious, I opened it. Inside were old documents, some business, contracts from when Ryan and I had launched one of my father's funded ventures. But tucked beneath a folder was something I didn't expect. A stack of old, unopened envelopes addressed to Ryan, postmarked, during the early days of our marriage. All from the same return address. Ryan's mother. I had never met her. Ryan had told me she was distant, cold, but the letters said otherwise. I debated for hours, but curiosity won. I opened one. Ryan, I don't know what happened to you. I raised you better than this. I saw the wedding announcement. You married a girl from money. I can only hope you married her for love, not greed. I found out she was pregnant, and then I found out you left. I won't pretend to understand the man you've become, but I do remember the boy you used to be. Please come home. The next letter was angrier. The one after that, broken, grieving, then silence. A part of me felt a strange sadness. Ryan's descent wasn't just about betrayal. It was about abandonment, by himself, by his choices, and maybe even by his past. Later that evening, I brought the letters to Ethan. You think Liam should ever see these? Ethan read them carefully, then shook his head. Maybe one day, when he's old enough to understand that people are not black and white, just broken, just human. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ryan. The last I had heard of him, he had disappeared again. After the journals and the recordings, he never reached out to me directly. I didn't know if he was alive, in recovery, or still running from himself. But life had taught me something important. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's simply choosing peace, even when the door never closed fully. Weeks passed. Summer bloomed brighter. And then, one morning, everything shifted. I was at a coffee shop downtown with Liam, treating him to a cupcake after a dentist visit. The bell above the door rang. I looked up, and time froze. It was Ryan, thinner, unshaven, wearing a worn-out hoodie and jeans several sizes too big. His eyes met mine, and I saw it. Shame, regret, and something else. Desperation. I stood slowly. Liam turned, confused. "Who's that, Mommy?" I hesitated. "This is someone I used to know." Ryan stepped forward, slowly. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Hi, Jessica." I nodded, calm, unshaken. Ryan knelt down slightly to see Liam, who stared at him with curiosity. "Is this him?" I nodded. "Liam, say hello to Mr. Ryan." Liam waved shyly. "Hi." Ryan's hands trembled. "He's beautiful." I stepped between them gently. "What do you want, Ryan?" He looked at me, voice trembling. "I didn't come to cause trouble. I swear, I saw you in the news. Your foundation, the women you help, the things you've done. And I had to see for myself. You left us. I know. You abandoned him. Abandoned me. I know that too. So why now?" He swallowed hard. "Because I finally stopped running. Rehab. Counseling. Living at a halfway house a few blocks from here. I've been clean for a year. No more gambling. No more lies. Just trying to live right. And I thought maybe I could just say thank you for not raising him to hate me." I stayed silent. He looked at Liam again, eyes filling with tears. "He deserves better than who I was. And he has better." Ryan nodded, eyes down. "I don't want to intrude. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say, I'm sorry for everything." He turned to leave, and for a moment, I let him walk. But then I said it. "Wait." He paused. "You're right. You don't deserve forgiveness. But Liam deserves truth. One day, not today. And maybe, if you really have changed, if you're truly on a better path, then maybe you'll earn the chance to speak to him. Not as his father, but as a man who once failed him and chose to do better." Ryan looked stunned, then grateful. "I'll wait for that chance, however long it takes." He walked out quietly. No drama, no explosion, just a broken man taking one small step towards something better. Liam looked up at me. "Mommy, who was he really?" I smiled softly. "Just someone from a story we're no longer part of." A few days later, I told Ethan everything. He supported my choice, not because he wanted Ryan in Liam's life, but because he trusted me to protect our son from lies, while teaching him compassion. That summer, we launched a new branch of the foundation, one focused on fatherless children, not to villainize men, but to support mothers raising warriors alone, and to help fathers who wanted redemption find a path to it. One afternoon, while finalizing a partnership meeting, my assistant rushed into my office. "Jessica, you need to see this." She handed me her phone. A live stream, a city fundraiser for the homeless, was happening downtown. And there, on stage, sharing his story, was Ryan, telling the truth about his rise, his fall, his addiction, his betrayal. He didn't mention me by name, or Liam, but he spoke about the woman he hurt, the child he abandoned, and the second chance he never expected, but prayed for every day. He ended with a line that made my chest tighten. "I destroyed the best thing I ever had, and now, every day, I build something better, even if it's just myself." I closed the video. Ryan would never be in our lives fully, but he was choosing growth, and that was enough. Back home, Ethan kissed my forehead. "You did something powerful today." I shook my head. "No, Ryan did. I just stopped being his prisoner." Liam ran into the room, waving a drawing of our family. 4 stick figures now. Me, Ethan, Liam, and a baby. A baby? I looked at Ethan, confused, then down at the test I had taken that morning, but hadn't told him about. "I guess Liam found it," I whispered. Ethan laughed. "We're having a baby." I nodded, eyes shining. "Yes, we are. He scooped me into his arms, spinning me in circles as Liam giggled beside us. And in that moment, I felt it again. Not revenge, not triumph, but freedom. The news of the baby brought a gentle wave of excitement over our home. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, sacred, like the heartbeat of something soft and miraculous beginning again. Ethan was over the moon. He read every book he could get his hands on, helped Liam understand what it meant to be a big brother, and built a tiny crib with his own hands. White wood, smooth finish, and carved with stars. I'd never seen a man pour so much love into something so small. Liam began talking to my belly each night before bed, whispering things like, "I'll share my toys with you, maybe, and I'll protect you, even if you're annoying." My heart melted more each time. Meanwhile, my foundation grew faster than I ever expected. We launched mentorship programs for single mothers, legal assistance for women escaping abusive homes, and free counseling sessions for young parents. Our headquarters, once a tiny rented office, expanded to a 2-floor building downtown, with murals on the walls, painted by survivors themselves. But with success came new shadows, not the kind that threatened my peace. I'd built too much armor for that, but reminders that old wounds have long echoes. One of our volunteers, a woman named Claire, approached me after a training session. She was in her early 20s, wide-eyed, raw with grief. "Jessica, I think I know someone who used to know your ex-husband." My heart stilled. Claire explained that she had stayed in a shelter, where a man named Ryan volunteered twice a week. He never talked much, she said. But when he did, he told the truth about what he did, about how he lost everything, and how he was trying to build his soul back, one conversation at a time. "He speaks about you," Claire added, "not bitterly, with respect, like he knows you saved him even though you walked away." I didn't respond, not at first. Instead, I sat in my office that night, hands on my belly, staring out the window at the city lights, the same city where I had once cried in a hospital bed, begging for the strength to face a world that felt like it had no place for me anymore. But now, here I was, whole, a mother again, a wife, a leader, and yes, still a survivor, but no longer only that. Ethan came in quietly and sat beside me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Do you think people really change?" He took a breath. "Yes, if they want to. If they're willing to lose everything first." I leaned into him. He did lose everything, and now he's trying, but that doesn't mean he gets a place in our lives again. "No," Ethan agreed, "but maybe he gets to live with a little less weight." The next few weeks passed quickly. My belly grew rounder. Liam became obsessed with reading baby books to the bump. Our home felt fuller than ever, not just physically, but spiritually. There was peace now, sewn into the walls. And then, in the middle of a rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived. No envelope, just folded paper slipped under the door of the foundation. It was from Ryan. "Jessica, I don't know if I deserve to write to you again. I promised myself I wouldn't reach out unless I had something worth saying. And I think, finally I do. I'm working now, at a small shelter. I earn enough to eat, to sleep somewhere warm. I haven't touched a card table in over 2 years. I walk by a church every morning, not to pray, but to remember that forgiveness begins with yourself. I saw a photo of you in the paper. You looked happy, strong, alive. It hit me how much I destroyed, not just a marriage, but the chance to stand beside someone who could have changed my life in the right way. I understand now that I never loved you the way you deserved. I wanted what you had, not who you were, and I paid for that with every breath I take alone. I don't want anything from you. I'm not asking to meet my son. I know that door closed a long time ago. I just wanted to say thank you for walking away, because if you hadn't, I might have never crawled out of who I was. Ryan." I read the letter in silence. Then I burned it, not out of hate, but because I didn't need it to carry forward. Ryan's words belonged to the past, and I no longer lived there. The baby came early, 3 weeks before her due date. A girl. Ethan held my hand the whole time. He whispered encouragement through gritted teeth and kissed my forehead between contractions. She was born in the quiet hours before dawn. Tiny but healthy. Eyes wide open like she already knew the world wasn't always kind, but came anyway. We named her Hope because that's what she was. The first time Liam held her, he whispered, "I'll protect you, even if you're annoying." We laughed, we cried. We became more than a family. We became a legacy. In the weeks that followed, messages poured in from women around the country. Women who had read my story, who had followed the foundation's growth, who had seen in my journey a mirror of their own. They didn't just want revenge. They wanted resurrection, and so I gave them more. I started writing a book, not a memoir of pain, but a guide to survival, a roadmap from betrayal to strength. I called it Born Again After Broken. By the time Hope was 6 months old, the book was a bestseller. By the time she was 1, I was standing on TED stages. And through it all, Ethan stood beside me. Never behind, never ahead, always beside. He didn't try to fix me. He walked with me while I fixed myself. One night, as we lay in bed with the baby between us, I whispered something I hadn't said out loud before. "Thank you for not giving up on love." He smiled. "Thank you for redefining it." The following year, Liam started school full-time. The house was quiet during the day again. Hope took long naps, and I began volunteering secretly at a different shelter. The same one where Ryan worked, not to see him, just to remind myself of who I had become, of the circles life draws when we least expect it. One day, I saw him across the room folding blankets. He didn't notice me. He was laughing with an old woman, helping her adjust her wheelchair. There was no arrogance, no desperation, just simplicity. He had become small, and in that smallness somehow, more human. I didn't speak to him. I didn't need to. We weren't characters in each other's story anymore, just echoes in a long, winding life. And when I left that day, I didn't feel grief. I felt gratitude. I had walked through fire. I had carried a child through betrayal. I had rebuilt myself from ashes. And I had loved again, not because I needed saving, but because I was whole enough to open my heart again. Autumn returned. The leaves were a blaze of orange and red, dancing along sidewalks as the wind carried whispers of change. It had been nearly 4 years since the day I gave birth alone. 4 years since betrayal split. My heart wide open and left, me bleeding on the cold tile floor of a hospital room. 4 years since Ryan walked away and I chose to stand instead of shatter. And now, I stood in the mirror fastening a diamond pin to my hair. Today was not a wedding, nor a funeral. It was something in between. I was being honored with a national award for humanitarian leadership. The audience would be full of political figures, scholars, activists, survivors. My name had become more than a name. It was a story carried in headlines, etched into books, whispered across counseling rooms, like a lifeline. Jessica Alden, founder, survivor, mother, warrior. My daughter Hope ran into the room laughing, her curls bouncing, her dress too big but too beautiful to care. Liam followed behind her, now older, taller, sharper. He carried himself with confidence, but still looked at me the same way he did when he was 5. Like I was made of magic. Ethan walked in and stopped in the doorway. His eyes held that familiar softness I had grown to trust. He took a long breath. "You ready?" "More than ever," I said, as we walked out into the hallway, past the gallery of framed photos on the wall. Pictures of my family, my team, our foundation. I paused by one I hadn't noticed before. It was a shot of me holding Hope on stage, handing her a toy microphone as she babbled nonsense into it. Below the photo was a small plaque. "To the woman who turned pain into purpose." I smiled. At the event hall, the crowd was already seated. Spotlights lit the stage in golden hues. My speech sat folded in my purse, though I didn't plan to read it. I had spent too many years hiding behind prepared lines. Tonight, I would speak from truth. When my name was called, the applause was thunderous. I walked onto the stage slowly, carefully, letting the silence settle as the cheers faded. I stood at the podium, breathed deeply, and began. I used to believe that survival was about endurance, about staying upright when the world tried to crush you. But I was wrong. Survival is about choosing to rise when no one expects you to, when even you don't expect you to. 4 years ago, I gave birth to a son while drowning in betrayal. My husband had left me. My heart was shattered. I had nothing but a newborn and a name that no longer felt like my own. But I made a choice, not to forget, but to build, brick by brick, moment by moment. I built safety. I built love. I built a home where scars didn't have to be hidden, but honored. Today, I stand before you, not because I won some war, but because I stopped letting someone else write my ending. The room was silent. I looked toward the crowd and saw faces I knew. My mother, my sister. The volunteers who had stood beside me when the foundation had no money, no building, just a dream. I saw Claire. I saw women who had left abusive marriages, started businesses, adopted children, published books, women who had turned their own pain into something beautiful. I continued. For a long time, I thought forgiveness was something you gave to others, but I learned something much harder. Forgiveness is something you give to yourself first. I forgive the woman I used to be, the one who ignored the signs, the one who begged for crumbs of affection, the one who let someone else decide her worth. I forgive her because she is the reason I am here. And if you're sitting in this room today, still bleeding, still aching, still unsure if you'll ever feel whole again, let me say this: you already are. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in that deep, thunderous applause that feels like healing. After the event, as I stood backstage with hope in my arms, a young journalist approached me. "Jessica, do you mind if I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead," I said. "Do you ever hear from him?" I knew what she meant. "Ryan." I nodded slowly. "Sometimes. A letter, a photo of a mural he helped paint, an anonymous donation to our shelters. He never signs it. But I know it's him. Do you hate him?" I shook my head. "No, I pity the version of him that couldn't see what he had. But the man he's becoming, that version, I hope he finds peace, because hating him would only anchor me to a past I've outgrown." The journalist nodded, eyes wide with admiration. But I didn't need admiration. I needed honesty. And that's what I had given. Later that night, back home, I tucked Liam into bed. He looked up at me thoughtfully. "Mom, do you think bad people can become good?" I smiled. "I think all people can become better, but not everyone chooses to." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad Dad didn't stay, because I think you needed to be alone for a while, so you could find the people who really loved you." Tears welled in my eyes, out of the mouths of children. I kissed his forehead and turned off the light. In the hallway, Ethan was waiting. He pulled me into his arms and held me like I was still breakable, even though he knew I wasn't. "You were born to lead," he whispered. "No, I was born to survive. Leadership came after. And love came when I stopped expecting it to fix me." We walked together into the nursery where Hope was sleeping. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each breath, the pure sound of possibility. I sat beside her crib and whispered the final words of the story I had once promised myself I would write. They tried to break me, but instead they built me stronger, wiser, untouchable. The next morning, I received a message. It was short, anonymous. "Thank you. You saved more lives than you know." No signature. But I knew Ryan was still out there, not asking to return, just walking his own road finally. And I had no desire to turn back, because the future was already calling, and I had people to raise, women to lift, stories to write, And most importantly, I had peace, not the kind that comes from revenge,